Hey guys, welcome back to Matt's Chem Review. So today we're going to ask a very deep philosophical question. Here on the table we have a pile of pennies and a cup of water. Now if we take those pennies and we cut them in half, then again, eventually we get to the minimum amount of pennies. If you have half a penny, it's not worth half a cent, it's just garbage. Okay, so what about the cup of water? Let's say we were to cut this cup of water in half, and then in half, and again, and we keep going again and again and again. Would we eventually get to a minimum amount of water the same way there's a minimum amount of pennies? Is there some unit of water that you cannot cut and still have water? Well, the first people to think about this question were the ancient Greeks, and they believed that there was a minimum amount of water. And they called that minimum thing an atom. The word atomos means uncuttable in Greek. The Greeks believed that atoms came in 4 flavors, which they called elements, and the 4 elements were air, earth, fire, and water. So the idea was that even though there are only 4 elements, you could combine them to make compounds, which are combinations of different elements. So like water and earth equals mud, fire and water equals steam. And that's how, even though there are only 4 different flavors, you could still make all the different types of stuff that exist in the world. So that's what the Greeks thought. But the interesting part is they never checked this idea. They never actually figured out if what they thought was true. And there's 2 reasons for that. The first was that they lacked the advanced technology they needed to actually check these ideas. The second is that the Greeks were lazy. Seriously, the ancient Greeks, all they ever did was sit around, drink wine, and talk. That's all they did for thousands of years. And they're all dead now. And I'm not saying the fact that they're lazy is why the ancient Greeks are all dead. I'm just saying it didn't help. Okay, so enough about the ancient Greeks. So the answer is yes, there is in fact a minimum amount of water. Atoms exist. And there were 2 other things that the Greeks got right. One is that atoms cannot be cut. The second is that all atoms of the same element are identical. Notice that for both of these things, I have a little asterisk on the end. And that's important. This is something you're going to start seeing in these videos. A lot of times, I'm going to have to tell you something that's mostly true, but not 100% true. So as an example, let's imagine I were to say that Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492. Now that's mostly true, but if I were just to say that and make no other comments, I can imagine you might be like, really? Really? Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492? So you're saying America was a secret in 1491? No one knew about it? This is really informative. I'm learning so much from this presentation. So it was a lot better off for everyone if I say Christopher Columbus discovered America asterisk, meaning there's a little more to this story than I'm telling you. So atoms do exist. There is a minimum amount of stuff, and they cannot be cut, mostly. And it turns out, and I didn't talk about this much before, but all atoms of the same element are identical. All atoms of carbon are the same as all other atoms of carbon. All hydrogens are the same as other hydrogens, and so forth. Again, asterisks. So now that you know what the Greeks got right, let's talk about what they got wrong, which, oh man, I could go on for hours. We're just going to focus on 2 particular things. The first is that there aren't 4 elements, but 118, and they keep discovering more every couple of years. Here is a chart that shows all 118 elements. Get used to looking at this chart. You're going to be seeing a lot of it this year.
One particular element comes to mind. Wire.
The second thing they got wrong is that water is not an element, but a compound. Water is a combination of 2 elements called hydrogen and oxygen that looks like this. We call this thing a molecule. It is held together by 2 bonds. The little chain between each hydrogen and the oxygen is called a bond. We'll talk a lot more about that later in the year. And that's it for this week. We're going to stop right there. So here's the vocab you really need to know. You want to memorize all these words because they're going to be important later. Matter is anything you can touch. An atom is the minimum unit of matter. Elements are the basic flavors of atoms. Compounds are what you get when you combine elements. H2O would be an example. A molecule is the basic unit of a compound. A bond is the thing holding atoms together in a compound or in a molecule. And the ancient Greeks were super smart dead people who were lazy. So that's it for this one. No homework. See you on the next one.